What's going on, Cab Training family? I'm Jacob Cabazzuto and I am back, and I'm here to drop some knowledge about sports specialization. Specialization is basically training for one sport and neglecting all the others so you guys can achieve elite performance. And at some point, if you are trying to be a professional athlete, you guys are going to have to specialize and start specializing yourself in one sport. But in today's game of youth sports, it is happening a lot more often at a younger age. So in this video, I'm going to drop some knowledge on whether specialization is effective and whether or not you should be putting your kid, or if you're a youth athlete, if you should be specializing in one sport at your age. So make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to Cab Training so you guys stay in tune with all the new content I put out for you. And let's get better today, right here, knowledge-wise. Just realized that was very corny, but let's get into it right now. So for much of this video, I'm going to be pointing towards a study done by Sports Health, a multidisciplinary approach. And this article dives deep into whether sports specialization is helpful for young athletes or not. What the article really highlights from the get-go is back then, whenever back then is, but I'm probably going to assume that probably 20, 30 years ago, it was a lot different of a landscape in youth sports than it is today. What they're saying, the landscape has changed from a child-driven, more of a recreational play for fun, to a now more adult-driven and more towards specialization, which is specializing for one sport and training for one sport while neglecting others. So they talk about this change in the landscape, and they really point to the fact that the landscape has changed for better or for worse. We got to remember that the kids are playing sports because they love it and not for the adult's pleasure and the adult trying to live vicariously through their kid. So let's dive right into the results of the study. I'm not going to beat around the bush too much, but what they say is sports specialization does not have a big impact on whether or not athletes achieve elite status in that sport. So starting to train pre-puberty on a sport very intensely and very focused on one sport does not help an athlete achieve elite status, according to this article, according to this scientific research. What is much more effective for young athletes, according to this research, is that they wait until after, like into the late adolescence, which I'm thinking about 16, 17, 18, around that age, right, where things start to get serious and you start playing it at a collegiate level. One of the more important parts of the article I believe in is the fact that stress, burnout, and injury play a huge part in early implementation of sports specificity. And I think that if you guys specify in a sport too early, that I think a lot of stress of trying to beat the next person who you're trying to compete with for an offer or to be a better player and to be your best, I think that wears you down a little bit. And I think burnout does happen a significant amount of times, especially if that sport is not your complete passion. And I think injury is a huge part of it, because as an athletic trainer, I try to get my athletes to make different types of movements that they're not accustomed to in the sport that they predominantly play. Most of my athletes play football, so I'm going to try and get them jumping, turning in different ways, so their body gets used to different movement patterns compared to football. Because if you do the same movement pattern over and over and over and over again at a young age, it starts to wear you down and you'll get more prone to injury because of it. So on the psychological side as well, I think it's very important to get a diversified experience in athletics so your mind can cope with different stresses and your body can cope with a different type of endurance and a different strain on your muscles. I think it's an overall better thing to play a diverse amount of sports leading up to your specificity at an older age. The last thing I'm going to talk about in this video applies more to society, and I think society feeds into sports specialization a lot more than it should, because going back to what I said earlier in the video, where it used to be recreational sports, and all these players, if you watch some of the best football player documentaries of all time, they played recreational sports. They played out in the backyard with their brothers and their friends out in the street. that's how they got better at their sport. But nowadays, it's more organized, there's more publicity, there's more money surrounding everything, even from the professional leagues all the way to the youth leagues. Tournaments make bunches of money on the competitions year round in tournaments for any sport, and there's a lot more money involved, there's a lot more parents involved, and there's a lot more steering the young athlete in a certain direction for the parents' sake. And I think society, from a parental mindset, kind of needs to change and let the kid figure out what they want to do on their own. And then society also needs to stop feeding this frenzy of competition where these kids feel stressed about getting an offer in middle school. Because when I started reading articles about kids getting offers in middle school for colleges, then I really started thinking, dang, I think we're spiraling out of control with some of the recruitment of these kids, because these kids are 12, 13, not knowing what they're going to do in 5 years. I sure as heck didn't know what I was doing when I was 17 years old. So I think society has to change for the better, I think, when it comes to sports specialization, because our kids don't need that stress. Our kids don't need to be tearing their ACLs at a young age. And I just think that we'd all be better off, because I think that'll make everybody better and more well-rounded people when they get a diversified experience in sports and they get to make their own choices. So guys, if you agreed with my views, feel free to comment in agreement, but also if you disagreed with my views, feel free to start a conversation down below in the comments, because I think this is a really good conversation to have. Some people believe in sports specialization, some people don't, and I think it's good to get a majority of voices out there just to hear some other people's point of view on this subject, because it's a very important subject. I am in youth development, sports development for a reason, because I want to see these kids become their best selves, whether they play football in college or whether they don't. And I just really believe in doing what's best for the youth, and sports specialization may be best for them, may not be best for them. You tell me in the comments. Again, guys, I have a bunch of content coming up for you guys. Make sure you guys subscribe to Cab Training so you guys don't miss any more drill videos, workouts, and sit down, whatever these videos are that give you advice / promote scientific evidence. But make sure you guys like this video so it reaches more people and the conversation can continue, and subscribe to Cab Training so you don't miss anything. Let's get better today.